All right, guys, let's talk about some of the other free agency moves not involving the Cleveland Browns. One that I guess inadvertently does is the Maxx Crosby situation, guys. The Raiders, had agreed to trade 2 first-round picks or get 2 first-round picks for Maxx Crosby from the Baltimore Ravens. Then yesterday, they put out a comment saying the Ravens have pulled out of the deal. We have no further comment. It's since been reported that this from Diana Rossini, but you could look at almost any national reporter at this point, but shout out Diana for having kind of the first one, that this whole Max failed his physical report may be a little bit of bogus, Zach, and I see you kind of smirking. So maybe you have some inside information, maybe you don't. They have since pivoted and signed Trey Hendrickson to a 4-year, $112 million deal, so maybe a little nefarious actions going on.
Yeah.
But this whole situation's crazy because a lot of teams have moved on since not getting Maxx Crosby, and now a lot of them are wondering, well,
is he
can
still
we go
available?
get him? So, Zach, what do you say about this?
Well, I think bogus is probably a word I would stay away from because we don't know the details, but we knew what was up with Maxx Crosby. He had a bad knee. The Raiders were shutting him down, A, because of the knee, B, C, and D, because they were tanking. But he had the surgery. So before you even get to step 2, as any team, the Ravens, the Colts, the Eagles, whomever, you need the medical report. You know he's coming off of this. Maxx Crosby's played a lot of games. He's got a lot of miles on him, right? He's not 30 yet, but he's got a lot of miles on him.
29.
So you have zero surprise. You knew exactly when the surgery was, and you probably even have the preliminary medicals. So you make the trade on Friday night. You beat everybody to the punch. You have the guy in your building for almost 2 full days. And then at 8 o'clock at night, 20 hours before the official start of the league year and pen goes to paper officially and papers get put in the fax machine officially, it's fishy.
Yeah.
It's probably nefarious. It's strange. It's bad business from the optics standpoint, no doubt.
Have you seen this happen before? You covered the league for a long time.
I've seen guys fail physicals. I've seen deals fall through.
I cannot. Karen?
Yeah.
Sashi's in Baltimore.
But a player of
a player of this
first round
stature,
picks and the contract, I just can't remember ever because teams want you want the guy to pass the physical. In fact, if there was any questions, like you said, they should know most of the details before. So going into it, there's no surprises. You're like, okay, yeah, you're not playing football today, but we know where you're going to be in 2 months.
Right. The Raiders did not just call the Ravens and say, you have an hour to do this deal. Right. The Raiders suddenly put out, we will trade Maxx Crosby for this price. Right. And they said the same thing to the Cowboys, to the Eagles, to the Colts, to everybody. The Bengals everybody inquired on Maxx Crosby. Just like everybody inquired last year on Myles Garrett, and the Browns said no. So, it's really weird that it would have come to this because there was no leak like teams are hesitant because of it. 2 first-rounders, even though they're counting on next year's being very late, that's a huge price. And that was a deal the Raiders could not turn down.
And the reports from elsewhere were Dallas offered a first and a second. Other teams had offered a first and a second. I saw Schefter on Get Up this morning say that during the medical procedure, the Cowboys team doctor was part of the physical report, which is interesting because they were a team interested, but it's not. That part's not nefarious. That happens all the time where he was the designated specialist for that injury working. It is just crazy that a player of that caliber, I don't want to say franchise-changing player, but top 5 defensive player in football, arguably him and Myles Garrett, the 2 best run-stopping defensive ends in football. He has 45 tackles for loss and run stops over the last 2 seasons, 13 more than Myles, who's second. 13 over 2. It's not a little gap. That is a gigantic gap. Myles is a better player. No, I'm not saying that, but he's in that at least conversation for elite defensive ends, and the Ravens haven't had an elite pass rusher of that caliber since Terrell Suggs. They bring in Jesse Minter, defensive-minded head coach. That felt like the perfect fit, and then for now, poof, lots changed.
It's not a stretch to call him a franchise-changing player, right? Any team, let alone the Baltimore Ravens, is not giving up 2 first-round picks unless you view the guy as a franchise-changing player.
Valid,
right?
Yeah.
And this guy is in the tier, right? And we can argue, and we do here in Cleveland, about who's the best and how they're different and all of that. But Maxx Crosby is a dude. And Maxx Crosby is a guy that Baltimore viewed, at least for a few days, probably a few weeks, few months, as a guy that could get them over the hump, right? They think they're close. They're willing to make this sacrifice. They're willing to go for it. And then at the last minute, the last day, they're out when everything's been agreed to, when they've won the auction, when he's been in your building?
Zach, how does this go over with
Can't be good.
other teams looking at the Ravens going forward?
It doesn't go over well. Now, does it really change anything if you have a deal done?
Sure.
I don't know. It depends on the magnitude of the deal. It doesn't.
But does it make teams hesitant to even call you.
Well, it certainly makes the Raiders hesitant.
Right.
And I think what ultimately will be is he will get traded for a 1 and a 2. It won't be 2 once, and the Raiders will be mad. And I don't know. I think the Raiders had so much cap space. I think they can make all these other moves.
They're able to still absorb Maxx Crosby because of the excess of cap.
So it's
no other
all
team
the
would be able
moves.
to.
Right.
They're the exception.
All the moves they made. It's all the moves the Ravens started to make. And the Ravens, half their team, it feels like, went to the Giants with
And by the
Harbaugh.
way, the moves the Ravens didn't make. Maybe they offer Linderbaum a little more money because their reported offer was 4 for 88. Vegas came in 3 for 81.
Yeah.
Maybe if they don't think they're getting Maxx Crosby, they up their offer a little bit.
So every year there is some sort of curveball, but it's usually more in the middle tier. And it's not usually like a last minute the team gets cold feet. It's usually the player gets cold feet.
Yeah.
Or gets suddenly a better offer from some super desperate team.
Has anybody heard, is Max on the record about this at all or no?
Not since. Now he did.
Has he posted anything on
He
social?
posted that he was in Baltimore yesterday.
Yeah,
before
and he
this
posted
happened.
he was flying home. He posted that, but I don't think he's made a full statement. His agent came out with a statement late last night, but it was simple. It was basically saying the medical information says that Max is going to be the player that he's always been, and everybody knew about this surgery. It would be one thing if it was a hidden surgery.
Yeah.
But it wasn't.
No.
I guess, I mean, anybody who's dealt with a relationship or whatever, you get a marriage, maybe you get cold feet. Is that just what the Raiders did? They were like, okay, maybe after sleeping on this for a couple days, we just don't think we'd rather have the first round picks.
We'd rather have Trey Hendrickson in the first round picks.
Yeah.
The whole Ravens offseason came down to two things. One, the Linderbaum contract.
Yeah.
And two, by 4 p.m. today, Lamar had to restructure his contract. Now, that was a given, but Lamar does not have an agent. So it's always a little tricky because it's player directly to owner or player to cap guy.
Yeah.
But they needed to make two plans. Are we having Linderbaum or are we not? And they were willing, when they made this trade, to lose Linderbaum, only for very top of the market, and he completely busted the market. So those two organizations start to go in a straight line with these moves.
Sure.
And then Philly has to pivot, and Dallas has to pivot, and whomever else is involved here. And there were teams trying to get Hendrickson this morning. But the Ravens saw and said, we can't give this up.
So Ari Merov, My Sports Update on Twitter, put together a timeline of the information he could gather. I want to read this for you guys just on this. Then
That others gathered that he puts out.
Yes.
Yes. I just want to make that clear.
Yes. Very, very, very good. I was reading what he said, but the reality is what you said. Then we'll talk about some of the other deals. This is what Ari Merov said, or is aggregating. 4 or 5 teams, including the Eagles, Colts, and Bills, were in talks with Trey Hendrickson's camp Tuesday morning trying to hammer out a deal. Midday, those talks stalled and communication was lacking compared to the morning. Teams involved got the sense something major had changed behind the scenes. We now know the Ravens had jumped in and aggressively started pushing to get a deal done at a bigger number than everyone else. After the Maxx Crosby trade falling through becomes public, at that point, other teams realized Hendrickson was going to end up in Baltimore this morning. It was finalized. Hendrickson, a Raven, 4-year, $112 million deal. Maxx Crosby back with the Raiders in the facility this morning.
What's even crazier about this whole thing, and this isn't necessarily for this example, is 80% of these deals are done at the combine. Right? They're done, and you get to noon on Monday, and you just simply finalize them. And sometimes there is a late team. Sometimes there's a late change in the team's thinking. But you do those deals, have them done, and because you're stacking them, it goes 1-1-1 down the line. And so for this kind of late curveball, after that commitment had been made on both sides, it does affect
I
so
can't
much.
wait for the 30 for 30 on this deal.
Yeah.
I mean, you thought the A.J. McCarron thing was interesting and funny. There's got to be way more.
And
this time.
Sashi Brown is the president of football operations.
He's the president of the team. He's not really
president of the
supposed to be involved with the football operations.
Okay.
He lost his privileges.
Yeah. Well,
Did you see the guy, the Ravens fan? His @ is @ Kyle Hamilton DPOY, who said, "I'll shave my head if Matt
I saw
is the
that.
Raven."
Yeah.
Shaved his head.
Yeah.
Not a good look.
No.
Nobody's more mad than him.
Yeah.
Because he committed.
yeah, this is an
He's
insane
got no
story.
hair.
Fortunately, hair goes back.
Yeah. Some of the other moves. Romeo Doubs, 4 years, $80 million to the Patriots. He was a guy that we had talked about as a possibility for the receiver room for the Browns. Dustin, $20 million a year for Romeo Doubs.
I'm tainted on because the guy wears a pillow on his head to give that guy that much money. I'm kidding. I get it, but he's a great player.
Yeah.
Great player. Covered him in college. Watched his career. He's a dynamic guy.
Where did he go to college?
Nevada.
We're talking about a lot of Nevada guys here today, for sure. I didn't know we were going to talk No Sean Marino, but we did that too.
You want to go?
Shout out to my guy No Shot.
Colin Kaepernick.
Yeah,
Nate Burleson?
Yeah, start naming Nevada players. The Browns had one, Corey Jackson. He didn't last long.
No.
But Bitonio did.
Predictions for the Browns the rest of free agency. You think they're done making
No,
significant signings?
No, I think any veteran they add to the receiving core is a significant move because they just don't have reliable guys. They don't
Is there a name
have proven guys.
you've heard you circling? At least something.
I can't believe that if Michael Pittman was available for a pick swap that they didn't do it. That just
He loves
seems
to go to Pittsburgh.
right.
Of course.
It seems like an Andrew Berry special.
Sure.
Like that is right up his alley.
Right,
based on
and
his
that guy
previous-
just instant credibility to your group.
Oh,
So-
he's a hard worker. Like, he will do anything for your team. Like, physical. Like, I don't know.
They must not want to give the extension.
He's a perfect Pittsburgh Steeler.
Yeah. No, and I understand that, and they're not really in position to, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, they're spending ahead. They're spending. They positioned themselves with enough money over the course of this week to be aggressive to an extent. Now, they're going to clear up more money after 4 p.m. today when these things become official because of the Njoku release and post-June 1 designation and presumably the Bitonio release and post-June 1 designation. So then, now another wave of guys becomes available. Kyler doesn't officially hit the market today. And I'm not connecting Kyler to Cleveland. I'm just saying that's another domino. So I think when you look at the quarterback market, it was always Malik Willis at one because he was going to get real money. And then it's Kyler, who's probably the best of the next rest, and he's not getting any money because Arizona's paying his salary for 26. So once he goes, the rest of it comes in. The Jets knew they were out. They went and got Geno
Why
Smith.
was Tua able to sign then and Kyler hasn't?
Because
been?
Tua was officially Tua agreed.
Oh, so I see what you're saying.
Yeah. So
Just not officially.
there are technicalities to this. The Browns, Malik Collins last year was a June 1 of the Niners, so he didn't officially sign with the Browns till Thursday. But on Tuesday, the Browns knew they were getting Malik Collins. It's just kind of how this goes.
Gotcha. Well, hopefully they do something at a position we could at least
Right.
like watch in shorts and.
It's hard to analyze offensive linemen.
Yeah.
No doubt.
It just is. You know, on The Athletic, we do these templated releases when a top 100 free agent. And when it's a player that has stats and has a long track record, it's easy. It's a great, quick read. When it's an offensive lineman, what can you say? Especially when it's like the first one of, they're bringing in 3 or 4.
And with the offensive lineman, and this has been, I guess I kind of knew it, but until these most 3 recent signings, like it didn't. The PFF grades versus the ESPN grades and how they judge, I mean, they're night and day. Like, could not be more similar. And I don't know which one is more reliable. Like, genuinely speaking, I don't know which is a better use of, which tool is more useful. But, like, ESPN had Zion Johnson as a better pass blocker than a run blocker. PFF had him as one of the worst pass blocking guards in football and one of the best run blocking. How they're looking at the same thing and getting night and day different. Same with Jenkins, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Which one? Elton?
Not Tevin. Elton, yes. Elton Jenkins was completely opposite the PFF versus the ESPN. And, I don't. Do you have a preference? I know you work for a totally different outlet, but.
No, but, if any advanced stat, I think you're looking to just put him in a bucket, right? If it's this great, it probably means he's at least okay. But right when they're that starkly different, it is interesting. And it's hard. It doesn't mean the PFF is awful or great. It's hard. You don't know what they're being asked to do.
Are you surprised Alec Pierce got almost $30 million, the same contract as T. Higgins?
I'm not, because the timing is everything. And he hit the market here the time the Colts didn't think they could lose him, and there's other teams lurking. I mean, Doubs, that's an overpay too on Doubs. Now, you're supporting Drake May. You're building around your guy. It makes sense. But, he's not a number 1 receiver.
No.
Alec Pierce has been like a 5-target-a-game guy. I mean, he's got the highlight reel, but when has he ever been a volume guy?
I don't know.
He has
at Cincinnati.
We had his stats.
How about that Cincinnati team that made the playoffs?
Unbelievable.
The contracts that they've cashed in on those guys.
Who else was on that?
Sauce Gardner.
Alec Pierce.
They literally tweeted out a graphic. Jerome Ford was on that team too.
Yeah.
For what it's worth.
Yeah.
They tweeted out. It was crazy. Cincinnati football, Bearcats football. There we go. I bet you it's their pinned tweet. It should be.
Yeah, it should be.
It is not, because social media is just.
Either way.
Yeah, I'm blanking.
They overpaid for him. I mean, he's obviously a very talented player, but I mean, every time this year, I feel like we all have sticker shock with these contracts.
Yeah, we do. Look,
Kobe Bryant was part of it.
Yeah. Where you sit with the Browns comes down to this. What their plan is, or what their real expectations are for the next 6 months and 2 years, we don't know. And that will change. But they have to nail this draft. These prices are not getting any less outrageous. They have holes, and they have solidified their biggest weakness. But have they gotten any better? I don't know. whichever side you're on, it's just like being whatever side you're on with Shedeur right now. We have to see. We have to see how the improvements come. We have to see how the chemistry comes. We have to see what chances they get. But they have to surround him and everybody with better players. If they don't have another outstanding top of the draft, then they're just going to continue to be one of the worst teams in the league, and that's what they are, one of the worst teams.
If these players in this year's draft don't produce as rookies on the field like last year's class, where does Andrew Berry sit in this whole thing?
Well, it seems to me he has infinite job security.
Yeah, I mean, he seems like he's, what's his face?
I also think, although I think you could easily make the case that he has done things for job security and this long-term plan that we wonder if it is ever going to come to fruition, I also think some of the moves, like firing the coach, indicate that he knows he has to win. And that's what I'm most curious to see here. It's hard to get a new line to gel. It's hard to get a new quarterback with new staff. It's really hard to complete passes when your receivers are Jamari Thrash and Jerry Jeudy, right? But if this team starts 1-5, Dustin, like, what kind of pressure is anybody under?
Yeah. It's good.
Are you surprised, real quick, Njoku and Teller, in particular, Pochich, haven't really got any free agency?
Well, Pochich, no, because he has a major injury. But those guys don't officially, again, they don't
I
officially
know.
become free till today. And there's not going to be a ton of market on those guys. David Njoku can't run anymore.
No, he lost it like
that's-
overnight.
Yeah. He had 4 big games at the end of 23, and then Browns rewarded him, continually rewarded him with contracts, and he never played well again. It's
He was paid like Travis Kelce.
People are like,
after
we
that
love
year.
this guy. He celebrated. Well, he's the only one who ever scored more than 5 touchdowns.
It's true. It is true.
There was once a year where like Terrell Pryor led you in touchdown receptions.
Yeah. And then never was in the league again.
So it happens.